Okay, let's take a look now at the mouth in a little more detail. I'll start by just increasing this lip area here to allow me to give a little bit more definition later in the process. So I'm going to start off with the edge tool, and I will select this edge here and these edges here, double click, all the way around, and then I will right click and I will just bevel just to give me a little bit extra geometry around this area. Now down here you can see that it doesn't quite know how to bevel this area here. You can always change to the old variant of the bevel tool, which will correct that issue. Just increase that size a little bit and say OK. At this point I'm just going to slide these new edges out a little bit more. So again, with edges selected on here, I will move to my slide edge and vertex, and I'll just slide these up. I'm just holding Control down, and this one I will go to points. I'll slide this one. This is a little bit tight in here, so I need to just change these around. So I will use my move tool here and just bring these ones in a little bit more. And I could do the same on this side as well. And then it's just a case of really evening these up with the slide edge. Just even these polygons up as they border the mouth. And let's do the same down at the bottom. Move some of this around. Okay, with that done, what I'll do now is start to look at the inner part of the mouth. And one thing I need to do just to check is bring back my axis here. And you can see that on the top part of the head here, my vertices and geometry is pretty well aligned with that y-axis. However, on the lower jaw down here, it's not quite aligned nicely, even down to the body down here. So what I'll do is I will, using points here, go to my select, E on the keyboard, and choose this rectangular marquee. And I'll just select these points here. Next, I'll hit spacebar, transform, and I'll use the transform tool now to align all of these points here by using this icon here to stretch those into a straight line. And then here on this axis here, I'm going to hit 0. This is the Z axis, and it will pull all those selected points over to the Z axis, point 0. And that aligns my vertices more evenly. Let's deselect that now and concentrate now on the inner mouth. Here I'm going to use these selected edges to extrude outwards towards midpoint again to align with those vertices. So with my edges selected and transform, I'm going to say commit extrusion. And now I'm going to move these across to that center line. And you can see, because these are all offset from each other, that again we need to align these. So I'm going to use the same technique. I'm going to use this to stretch them into a line parallel to my axis, and then I'm just going to click in the Z axis here, hit 0, and align those edges this time with the previous edit that I made. Let's deselect and escape to drop the tool. With that done, I'll go ahead and attach these edges here to these front polygons of the jaw. Now you can see we've got a mismatch here of the amount of edges on the front of our jaw compared with the inner mouth polygons that we've just created. So I need to create some splits in here. And essentially I just need to create 2 splits. So I will go over to my split rings and make sure I'm on one of these edges here and just roll my mouse up to give me 2 splits in here and left click. Let's change over now to the quad tool. Make sure that direct is selected, and I will just start to bring these together. Back over to the slide edges and points. I'll choose points for this and just move these over just to equalize these a little bit more. Over to edges, slide this edge over. That bottom part is now done. So let's move over to the top part of our mouth. I've gone ahead here and selected these edges in the same way we did for the bottom jaw, and we'll move to the front here, hit commit extrusion and slide these ones over to that middle axis. Again, they're all offset, so I need to align them with the axis properly and move them over a little bit more to be more accurate. Just go over to this field here and hit 0. Then I know that they're completely on the 0 point of the Z axis, and then I can deselect. So now I've got a little bit of an issue here. If you remember, we produced 2 splits in the bottom jaw, and essentially I want these to all link up at the back of the mouth in this area here. So I'm going to need to put an extra split into here in order for this to line up. So let's do that. So let's go over to my split rings. I've already got 2 selected, and I'm going to click on here. We've got a mismatch here where we've got 3 edges, and I'm only going to be able to connect to 2. So I need to put an extra split in the top. Now, if we look at the back of our dinosaur here, we've got these 2 really large polygons. This gives me an opportunity to split these polygons into 2 to allow me to possibly put that spine on the back of the dinosaur at a later date. Let's just go back to our reference here. And when looking at the reference, we can see we've got this indication that there's some extra detail here on the back of our dinosaur. That extra geometry will be very useful in creating this sort of detail. So let's hide the reference. So here I'm going to go to my split rings again, and I've got 1 split selected. I'm going to hold down Shift to snap it more or less to the center of those edges, and I'm going to left click to apply that split. We've now got 2 even splits here, and they are fairly even, but then we've got this very large edge here. So I'm going to use the slide edges here, hold down Control, and just slide these ones just to even those edges up a little more. Now I need to just slide these ones over just to even these up a little bit more as well. Let's go to points. And of course, if I'm sliding an edge here, then I'm sliding 2 points at the same time. So it's slightly more efficient. Okay, so just trying to just even those up as best we can, and that helps me. Any details that I need for the top of the head and the back of my dinosaur, that extra split in there is going to help me. So let's go back to the top of the mouth here, which is why we were doing this. And here I'm going to use my quads direct, and I'm going to just snap these to complete the top part of the mouth. And any tweaks that I need to make to this, I can use my slide edges and just even these out. The next thing to do is simply connect these polys from the top of the mouth to the bottom of the mouth, and that's really simple. We can use the quads again, direct, selected, choose this edge and snap to the bottom part of the mouth. Now that I have my inner mouth polygons constructed, I want to talk a little bit about polygroups. So to begin with, I'm going to select these inner polygons that I've just created. I've still only got 1 polygroup for this complete model. I'm going to add a new layer, essentially creating a new polygroup. It's called polygroup 1. I'm going to rename this one inner mouth. And then I'm going to use this little icon down here to move the selected polygons from the body layer to this new polygroup called inner mouth. Select the body. You can see that now I've selected body, it's become this solid color, and the inner mouth is slightly transparent. And if we change and select the inner mouth, now the inner mouth becomes solid and the body becomes slightly transparent. So the selected layer is, think of it as the active layer. I can hide the body layer now and only have this polygroup visible. And the same here. I can continue working on this body mesh, but my polygroup of inner mouth is there. It's just not visible at the moment. I can select all the polygons on the inner mouth layer by hitting this icon here. And instead of individually shift selecting all the polygons, this makes it a lot easier. If I hit transform and move these polygons around, you can see that the polygons are still connected to the body layer. Even though they are separate polygroups, they are actually still welded together and part of the body. If I want to separate them completely, then I'll have to do an extra step. So I've gone ahead now and I've selected these edges around the outside of the inner mouth section here. And with those selected, I'm going to right click and I'm going to say split edge. And now you'll notice that the inner mouth layer has become a different color to the body layer. It's no longer welded and therefore is considered a separate object. And we can confirm that by selecting the layer, selecting all the polygons on that layer, hold spacebar and then transform. And now if I move these selected polygons, you'll see that they move independently of the body. This allows me to do something where I can stretch these polygons independently using this gizmo and just move them into a different location and shape them without affecting the geometry of the body layer. So this can be very useful inside the modeling workspace to help isolate areas of your model and organize them into polygroups. So now with those two polygroups created, if I now use my quads tool set to direct, I can now select this edge here and snap to this edge of the other. And this in effect binds these two together via these welded points that we can see here. So I will continue now to attach the inner mouth once again back to the body. And of course I can use select with edges and select these edges like so, right click to bridge those. I'll do the same at the top part here. Right click and bridge. Now we have this small area here where the skin connects the upper and lower jaw, and what I'd like to do on this is add a little bit of extra thickness to these polygons here, which are currently just a one-sided polygon. I need to obviously attach these to what I've just done here. So I will use the split rings tool here with a single split. So I'm just going to place a split here and in the top jaw here, and I will just connect these two up in the same way I did before. Use select, I'll use this edges selection, I select this edge and this edge, right click and bridge those two together. And finally I will just use my quads tool here with direct and just bring that piece in there like so. So now I've done that, I can just move these pieces around a little bit. So I'll go to move, points, it's easier probably at this point to just select the point, use the transform, and this way I can position it exactly where I need it to go. Now with that done, I can reattach this inner section here if I no longer need this inner mouth area to be independent of the body. I can rejoin that back and using these small dots on the end of the layer here, and I will drag that over back on to the body, which effectively welds those points back together and collapses into a single layer. So that completes the inner mouth section for now. In the next video, we'll work on the hands and feet. See you next time.